The roar of the crowd was a feeling, not a sound, to Michael. He stood on the sidelines, the bright green of the football field almost blinding under the Friday night lights. He loved football. The feeling of the ball in his hands, the adrenaline rush of a good run, the camaraderie of his teammates, even though sometimes, it felt like he was on the outside looking in. Michael was deaf. He'd been born that way. But that didn't stop him from loving the game. He'd watched his older brother play for years, mimicking his every move in the backyard, dreaming of the day he'd wear the blue and gold of Northwood High. He'd worked harder than anyone to make the team. Every morning before school, he ran drills. Every afternoon, he practiced catching passes, his eyes glued to the quarterback's hand signals. He'd even learned to read lips, a skill that helped him understand some of what his coach and teammates were saying on the field. But it wasn't easy. The other players sometimes forgot he couldn't hear them. Plays were called quickly, shouted over the noise of the crowd. Michael often missed instructions, leading to mistakes. The coach, a gruff but fair man named Mr. Thompson, tried to be patient. He knew Michael had heart, but he also worried about the team. Football was a game of split-second decisions, and communication was key. Michael's biggest challenge was understanding the plays. The team used a complex system of verbal cues and hand signals, a system designed for hearing players. Michael did his best to keep up, but he often felt lost, like he was trying to solve a puzzle with missing pieces. Still, he persisted, showing up every day with a smile and a determination to prove himself. He knew he had to work twice as hard as everyone else to earn his place on the team. His dream was to be a wide receiver, to catch the game-winning pass, to feel the elation of victory with his teammates. He wouldn't let anything stop him, not even his deafness. He was Michael, and he was a football player. Michael's early days on the team were a mix of excitement and frustration. He was thrilled to be wearing the Northwood jersey, but the communication gap loomed large. Simple drills became complicated. When the coach yelled instructions, Michael would have to wait for a teammate to tap him on the shoulder and explain. Sometimes, in the heat of the moment, that tap never came. He remembers one particularly tough practice. The team was working on a new offensive play, a tricky series of handoffs and misdirections. Mr. Thompson was explaining the play, drawing diagrams in the dirt with a stick. Michael strained to read his lips, but the coach spoke quickly, his words blurring together. He caught a few key phrases, quarterback sneak, wide receiver screen, but the overall strategy remained a mystery. During the drill, Michael ran the wrong route, colliding with another player. Mr. Thompson blew his whistle, his face red. "Michael! What are you doing? Pay attention." Michael felt his cheeks burn with embarrassment. He tried to explain, to tell the coach he hadn't understood the play, but the words caught in his throat. He just mumbled an apology and jogged back to the line. The other players weren't always understanding either. Some were patient, willing to repeat instructions and help him understand the signals. But others were less tolerant. They'd roll their eyes when he asked for clarification or complain when he made a mistake. "Come on, Michael, keep up," one of the linemen snapped after a botched play. "We don't have all day." Despite these challenges, Michael refused to give up. He stayed after practice, working one-on-one with the quarterback, Jake, who was one of his biggest supporters. Jake patiently repeated the plays, showing Michael the hand signals and explaining the timing. He even started using exaggerated gestures to make sure Michael understood. Michael also found other ways to adapt. He studied the playbook religiously, memorizing the routes and formations. He watched game film, paying close attention to the players' movements and the coach's signals. He learned to anticipate what was going to happen, to read the game like a book. He knew he had to be smarter and more prepared than everyone else if he wanted to succeed. He would show them that he was just as capable, just as valuable, as any other player on the team. He just needed a chance to prove it. Mr. Thompson, despite seeing Michael's dedication, wrestled with his own doubts. He admired Michael's spirit, his never-give-up attitude. He saw the extra hours Michael put in, the way he focused intently during practice. But Mr. Thompson was also responsible for the entire team. He had to make decisions that were in the best interest of everyone, and he wasn't sure Michael's deafness wasn't becoming too much of a liability. He'd stay up late at night, replaying practices in his head, analyzing Michael's performance. He'd see Michael miss a block because he hadn't heard the audible, or run the wrong route because he'd misinterpreted a hand signal. Each mistake, each miscommunication, added to Mr. Thompson's growing concern. He tried different strategies. He simplified the plays, using fewer verbal cues. He paired Michael with Jake, hoping their strong connection would improve communication. He even considered using a special helmet with a vibrating device that would signal the plays, but the school board rejected the idea due to budget constraints. One afternoon, after a particularly frustrating practice, Mr. Thompson called Michael into his office. He sat behind his desk, his face etched with worry. "Michael," he began, his voice gentle, "you know I admire your effort, right? You work harder than anyone on this team." Michael nodded, his heart pounding in his chest. He knew what was coming. "But," Mr. Thompson continued, "football is a team sport. It requires constant communication, split-second decisions. And I'm not sure. I'm not sure you can effectively communicate on the field." He paused, searching for the right words. "I'm worried that your deafness is putting you, and the team, at a disadvantage." Michael's face fell. He'd known this was a possibility, but hearing it from Mr. Thompson still stung. He'd poured his heart and soul into this team, and now, it seemed, it wasn't enough. He swallowed hard, trying to hold back the tears that threatened to spill. Mr. Thompson sighed. "I need to think about what's best for the team, Michael. I need to consider all my options." He didn't say the words, "cut," but Michael knew that's what he meant. His dream, the dream he'd worked so hard for, was slipping away. He left Mr. Thompson's office, his head hanging low, the weight of his disappointment heavy on his shoulders. The Friday night lights seemed a lot dimmer now. The news came on Tuesday. Michael saw his name on the list posted outside the locker room, "Players released." His heart sank. He scanned the list again, hoping it was a mistake, but his name was still there, stark and undeniable. Michael sat alone on the bench, the weight of the dismissal crushing him. He thought about all the hours he'd spent practicing, all the sacrifices he'd made. It felt like it was all for nothing. Tears welled up in his eyes, blurring the blue and gold of the Northwood logo painted on the wall. He wiped them away angrily. He wouldn't let this defeat him. He wouldn't let Mr. Thompson, or anyone else, tell him he couldn't play football. The first few days were the hardest. He couldn't bring himself to go to school. He stayed in his room, the curtains drawn, replaying the events in his head. He felt a mix of anger, sadness, and frustration. He was angry at Mr. Thompson for not believing in him, sad that his dream had been shattered, and frustrated that he couldn't seem to overcome the communication barrier. His mom tried to comfort him, but he pushed her away. He didn't want pity. He wanted a chance to prove himself. Jake, his quarterback friend, came by every day, trying to cheer him up. He told Michael that Mr. Thompson was making a mistake, that the team needed him. But Michael didn't want to hear it. He didn't want false hope. Then, one evening, as he sat staring out the window, watching the neighborhood kids play football in the street, something clicked. He realized he couldn't just give up. He couldn't let his deafness define him. He had to find a way to overcome the communication barrier, to prove to Mr. Thompson, and to himself, that he could play football. He stood up, a newfound determination in his eyes. He grabbed his football and headed out the door. He didn't know exactly what he was going to do, but he knew he had to do something. He walked to the empty football field behind the school, the same field where he'd spent countless hours practicing. The setting sun cast long shadows across the grass, and the air was still and quiet. It was just him, the ball, and his dream. He started to run. He ran harder and faster than he ever had before, his anger and frustration fueling his every stride. He wouldn't give up. He would find a way. He would play football. The empty football field became Michael's laboratory. He knew he couldn't change the fact that he was deaf, but he could change the way he communicated. He needed a system, a visual language that would allow him to understand the plays without relying on sound. He started small, experimenting with different hand signals. He assigned a specific signal to each route, a closed fist for a short slant, an open palm for a deep fly, a finger pointing to the ground for a quick out. He practiced these signals with Jake, who volunteered to help him refine his system. But hand signals alone weren't enough. Michael needed a way to know when the play was starting, a visual cue that would replace the quarterback's audible. He considered using a flag, but that seemed impractical. Then, he had an idea: lights. He convinced his dad, an electrician, to help him build a set of portable lights. They attached 3 colored lights, red, yellow, and green, to a small stand. Each light would correspond to a different set of plays. Red meant a running play, yellow meant a short pass, and green meant a long pass. Before each play, the quarterback would flash the appropriate light, signaling the play to Michael. It was a simple system, but it was effective. Michael spent hours practicing with Jake, running routes based on the light signals. He learned to anticipate the quarterback's movements, to read his body language, to react instantly to the visual cues. He even started incorporating his lip-reading skills, anticipating the snap count by watching Jake's mouth. He also worked on his own physical conditioning. He ran sprints, lifted weights, and practiced his catching skills. He wanted to be in the best shape of his life, to prove that he was more than just a deaf kid trying to play football. He was an athlete, a competitor, a football player. He practiced every day, rain or shine, pushing himself to the limit. He was driven by a burning desire to prove everyone wrong, to show them that he could overcome his disability and achieve his dream. He knew it wouldn't be easy, but he was willing to do whatever it took. He was Michael, and he was going to play football. He would create his own system, his own language, and he would show the world what he was capable of. The empty field was no longer a symbol of his disappointment, but a testament to his unwavering determination. It was his training ground, his sanctuary, the place where he would forge his own path to victory. Michael knew he needed to show Mr. Thompson his new system. He couldn't just tell him it worked, he had to prove it. He asked Jake to talk to the coach, to convince him to give Michael one more chance. Jake, being the loyal friend he was, went to Mr. Thompson immediately. "Coach," he said, "you have to see what Michael's been working on. He's developed this whole new way to communicate, using lights and signals. It's amazing." Mr. Thompson was skeptical. He'd seen Michael struggle for months, and he couldn't imagine a visual system would be effective enough. "Jake, I appreciate your enthusiasm, but I made my decision. Michael's a good kid, but football requires communication. Just give him one chance, coach," Jake pleaded. "Just one practice. If it doesn't work, then fine. But you owe it to him to see what he's capable of." Mr. Thompson hesitated. He respected Jake's opinion, and he knew Michael had worked hard. Finally, he relented. "All right, Jake," he said. "One practice. But if I don't see significant improvement, the deal's off." The next day, Michael arrived at practice with his lights and his playbook. He was nervous, but determined. He set up his lights on the sideline, explaining the system to Mr. Thompson. The coach listened intently, his expression unreadable. During the scrimmage, Michael lined up as a wide receiver. Jake flashed the green light, signaling a long pass. Michael took off, running a deep fly route. He glanced back at Jake, who nodded and launched the ball. Michael leaped into the air, extending his arms, and snagged the ball out of the air. The other players stopped and stared. They'd never seen Michael catch a pass like that before. He landed on his feet, clutching the ball tightly, a triumphant grin on his face. Mr. Thompson watched in amazement. He couldn't believe what he'd just seen. He signaled for Michael to run another play. This time, Jake flashed the yellow light, signaling a short pass. Michael ran a quick slant, catching the ball in stride and darting up the field. Play after play, Michael executed the plays flawlessly, responding instantly to the light signals and hand gestures. He was like a different player, confident, focused, and in complete control. Mr. Thompson was impressed. He still had reservations, but he couldn't deny that Michael's system was working. He saw the potential, the possibility that Michael could actually contribute to the team. He needed to see more, but for the first time in a long time, he felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, he'd made a mistake. Maybe Michael deserved a second chance. The Northwood High football team started the season strong, but after Michael's departure, things took a turn for the worse. The offense sputtered, the defense faltered, and the team began to lose game after game. The communication problems that Mr. Thompson had worried about before Michael left became even more pronounced. Players argued on the field, missed assignments, and seemed generally out of sync. The spark that had ignited the team at the beginning of the season had fizzled out. Jake, the quarterback, struggled the most. He missed having Michael as a reliable target. He knew Michael would always be where he was supposed to be, that he would always give 100%. Without Michael, the passing game became predictable, and opposing defenses were able to shut it down. The team's morale plummeted. Players started losing confidence, and the atmosphere at practice became tense and negative. Mr. Thompson tried everything he could to turn things around. He changed the plays, shuffled the lineup, and even brought in a motivational speaker. But nothing seemed to work. The losing streak continued, and the team's playoff hopes began to fade. The fans started to grumble, and the local newspaper ran a series of articles criticizing Mr. Thompson's coaching. He felt the pressure mounting, the weight of the team's failures heavy on his shoulders. He couldn't help but think about Michael. He remembered the look of disappointment on Michael's face when he told him he was being cut. He remembered Michael's unwavering determination, his refusal to give up. And he remembered the way Michael had performed at that last practice, responding instantly to the light signals and hand gestures. Mr. Thompson started to wonder if he'd made a mistake. Maybe Michael's deafness wasn't as much of a liability as he'd thought. Maybe Michael's visual system could actually work. Maybe, just maybe, Michael was the missing piece the team needed to turn things around. He knew he had to do something, and he knew he had to do it fast. The season was slipping away, and he was running out of time. He had to swallow his pride and admit that he might have been wrong. He had to find Michael and ask him to come back. The team needed him, and Mr. Thompson knew it. He just hoped it wasn't too late. The losing streak had taken a toll on everyone. The coach's realization dawned on him during the Friday night game against their rivals, the Capital City Cougars. The stands were packed, the air thick with anticipation, but the Northwood team played like they were sleepwalking. The first quarter was a disaster. The Cougars scored 2 quick touchdowns, exploiting Northwood's weak defense and predictable offense. The Northwood players looked lost and confused, unable to communicate effectively. Penalties piled up, and frustration mounted. During halftime, Mr. Thompson gave a fiery speech, trying to inspire his team. But his words seemed to fall on deaf ears. The players were demoralized, their confidence shattered. The second half was even worse. The Cougars continued to dominate, scoring 2 more touchdowns. The Northwood offense couldn't get anything going. Jake was sacked repeatedly, and his passes were intercepted. The running game was non-existent. With 5 minutes left in the game, the score was 35-0. The Northwood fans started to leave, their hopes of a comeback dashed. Mr. Thompson stood on the sideline, his face grim, watching his team fall apart. He saw Jake, his star quarterback, sitting on the bench, his head in his hands. He saw the linemen arguing with each other, blaming each other for the missed blocks. He saw the receivers dropping passes, their eyes filled with doubt. It was then that it hit him. The team wasn't just losing, they were broken. The communication problems he'd worried about before Michael left had become a self-fulfilling prophecy. Without Michael's reliable hands and unwavering determination, the team had lost its edge. He thought about Michael's visual system, the lights and signals that had seemed so unconventional at the time. He realized that it wasn't just about communication, it was about trust, about having someone on the field who would always be there, who would always give 100%. He knew what he had to do. He had to swallow his pride and admit that he'd made a mistake. He had to find Michael and ask him to come back. He knew it wouldn't be easy, but he had to try. The team's season, their hopes, and their dreams were on the line. He couldn't let them down. He had to do everything in his power to turn things around, even if it meant admitting he was wrong. He had to find Michael. He had to bring him back. He had to give his team a second chance. The loss to the Cougars was a painful reminder of what they had lost. The next morning, Mr. Thompson drove to Michael's house. He felt nervous, unsure of what to say. He knew he had to be honest, to admit his mistake and apologize for not believing in Michael. He rang the doorbell, and Michael's mom answered. "Mr. Thompson," she said, surprised. "What are you doing here?" "I need to talk to Michael," he said. "Is he home?" Michael came to the door, his expression wary. He hadn't spoken to Mr. Thompson since being cut from the team. "What do you want?" he asked, his voice cold. Mr. Thompson took a deep breath. "Michael," he began, "I made a mistake. I was wrong to cut you from the team. I didn't see your potential, and I didn't understand how valuable you could be. I'm sorry." Michael stared at him, his eyes searching for sincerity. He'd waited a long time to hear those words, but now that they were finally being spoken, he didn't know how to react. "The team is struggling, Michael," Mr. Thompson continued. "We're losing games, and the players are losing confidence. We need you. We need your skills, your determination, and your leadership. I know it's a lot to ask, but would you consider coming back?" Michael hesitated. He'd worked so hard to prove himself, and he'd been hurt deeply by Mr. Thompson's decision. He wasn't sure he could trust the coach again. "I understand if you don't want to," Mr. Thompson said, sensing Michael's hesitation. "But I hope you'll think about it. The team needs you, and I believe you can make a difference." He handed Michael a piece of paper with his phone number on it. "Call me if you decide to come back," he said. "I'll be waiting." He turned and walked back to his car, leaving Michael standing on the porch, his mind racing. He had a big decision to make. Should he forgive Mr. Thompson and rejoin the team, or should he walk away and focus on something else? He knew the team needed him, but he also knew that he needed to protect himself. He needed to make sure that he wouldn't be hurt again. He had to weigh his options carefully and make the decision that was best for him. The coach seemed sincere, but could Michael truly trust him? Michael spent the rest of the day wrestling with his decision. He talked to his mom, who encouraged him to follow his heart. He talked to Jake, who was ecstatic at the possibility of Michael returning. But ultimately, the decision was his. He thought about the team, about the players who were struggling, about the coach who had finally admitted he was wrong. He thought about his dream, the dream of catching that game-winning pass. And he thought about all the hard work he'd put in, the hours of practice, the sacrifices he'd made. He realized that he couldn't let Mr. Thompson's mistake define him. He couldn't let his fear of being hurt again hold him back. He had to forgive the coach, not just for the team's sake, but for his own sake. He had to prove to himself that he was strong enough to overcome anything, even disappointment and rejection. That evening, he picked up the phone and dialed Mr. Thompson's number. The coach answered on the first ring. "Michael," he said, his voice filled with hope. "I'll come back," Michael said. "But on one condition." "Anything," Mr. Thompson replied. "Name it." "We use my system," Michael said. The lights, the signals, everything. If I'm going to be on the team, I need to be able to communicate effectively. Mr. Thompson hesitated for a moment. He knew that incorporating Michael's system would require a significant adjustment, but he was willing to do whatever it took. "Okay, Michael," he said. "We'll use your system. We'll make it work." Michael smiled. He knew it wouldn't be easy, but he was confident that he and the team could find a way to integrate his visual communication system into their strategy. He was ready to face the challenge, to prove that he belonged on the team, to show the world what he was capable of. The next day, Michael returned to practice. The players were surprised to see him, but they welcomed him back with open arms. They knew that he was the missing piece, the player who could help them turn things around. Mr. Thompson addressed the team, explaining Michael's system and outlining the changes they would need to make. He emphasized the importance of communication and teamwork, and he urged the players to embrace Michael's system with an open mind. He knew rebuilding the team would be hard work. The first few practices were rough. The players were used to the old system, and it was difficult for them to adapt to the lights and signals. There were missed cues, misinterpretations, and plenty of frustration. Michael worked tirelessly to explain his system, patiently repeating the signals and demonstrating how they corresponded to the different plays. Jake, as always, was his biggest supporter, helping to translate and encourage the other players. Mr. Thompson also played a crucial role, reinforcing the importance of communication and emphasizing the need for patience and understanding. He reminded the players that they were a team, and that they needed to work together to overcome this challenge. Slowly but surely, the players began to adjust. They started to anticipate the light signals, to read Michael's body language, and to trust his judgment. They learned to communicate with him in a new way, relying on visual cues and gestures instead of verbal commands. Michael, in turn, learned to be more patient and understanding. He realized that it wasn't enough to just know the system, he had to be able to teach it to others. He had to be a leader, a communicator, and a teammate. He also worked on building trust with the other players. He knew that they had been skeptical of him before, and that he needed to earn their respect. He did this by working hard, by being reliable, and by always putting the team first. He stayed after practice, working one-on-one with the receivers, helping them to understand the timing and spacing of his routes. He studied the playbook with the linemen, explaining how his system could help them anticipate the snap count. He even learned some basic sign language, so he could communicate more effectively with the other players. Gradually, the team began to gel. The communication problems that had plagued them before started to disappear. The players started to trust each other again, and the atmosphere at practice became more positive and supportive. The losing streak ended, and the team began to win games. They were still a long way from being a championship contender, but they were moving in the right direction. Michael's return had given the team a spark, a renewed sense of hope and determination. They had overcome a major obstacle, and they were stronger and more united than ever before. The team started to believe in Michael. Against all odds, the Northwood High football team had made it to the championship game. After their mid-season slump, no one had expected them to get this far. But with Michael's return and the team's newfound unity, they had defied the odds and earned a spot in the final game. The atmosphere was electric. The game was being played at the Capital City Stadium, the home of their rivals, the Cougars. The stands were packed with screaming fans, a sea of blue and gold on one side, and a sea of red and white on the other. The pressure was immense. The championship game was the culmination of years of hard work, dedication, and sacrifice. It was a chance for the players to prove themselves, to show the world what they were capable of. It was also a chance for Mr. Thompson to redeem himself, to show that he had made the right decision in bringing Michael back. The Cougars were a formidable opponent. They were the defending champions, and they had a reputation for being a tough, physical team. They had a star quarterback, a dominant offensive line, and a ball-hawking defense. The Northwood players knew that they were in for a battle. They had to play their best game, to execute flawlessly, and to leave everything on the field. They had to trust each other, to communicate effectively, and to never give up. Mr. Thompson addressed the team in the locker room before the game. "This is it, guys," he said, his voice filled with emotion. "This is the moment we've been working for. This is our chance to make history. I know you can do it. I believe in you. Now go out there and give it everything you've got." The players erupted in cheers, their adrenaline pumping. They were ready. They were focused. They were united. They ran out onto the field, their hearts pounding in their chests, ready to face the challenge. The game was about to begin. The stadium erupted in cheers. This was the moment they had all been waiting for. Michael felt the excitement and knew they could win. The team was ready. The game was a nail-biter from the start. The Cougars came out strong, scoring a touchdown on their opening drive. Their quarterback, a tall, athletic player named Jason, threw a perfect pass to his favorite receiver, who made a spectacular catch in the end zone. Northwood responded with a touchdown of their own, with Jake connecting with Michael on a short slant route. Michael used his speed and agility to weave through the defense and score. The crowd roared, and the game was tied. The two teams traded touchdowns throughout the first half. The Cougars relied on their passing game, while Northwood mixed it up with a combination of running and passing plays. The score was tied at 21-21 at halftime. The second half was a defensive struggle. Both teams tightened up their defenses, making it difficult for the offenses to move the ball. The Cougars scored a field goal in the third quarter to take a 24-21 lead. Northwood struggled to respond. The Cougars' defense was focused on stopping Michael, double-teaming him on every play. Jake was under constant pressure, and he was forced to make quick decisions. With 5 minutes left in the game, Northwood was trailing 24-21. They had the ball on their own 20-yard line, facing a 4th-and-1 situation. Mr. Thompson called a timeout. He gathered the team around him. "This is it, guys," he said. "This is our chance. We need to get this first down. We need to keep this drive alive. I know you can do it." He decided to go for it. He called a running play, a power run up the middle. The offensive line surged forward, creating a small hole. The running back, a tough, determined player named David, lowered his head and charged through the hole. He was met by a wall of Cougars defenders. They swarmed him, bringing him down just short of the first down marker. The Cougars took over on downs, with just over 2 minutes left in the game. The Northwood players were dejected. They had come so close, but they had fallen short. It looked like their championship hopes were about to be dashed. The game was close and the tension was high. The team was struggling to score. The Cougars, sensing victory, tried to run out the clock. But the Northwood defense, fueled by desperation, forced a quick 3-and-out. With 1 minute left, Northwood got the ball back on their own 30-yard line. Mr. Thompson knew they had to score quickly. He called a series of short passes, trying to move the ball down the field. Jake completed a pass to Michael for 10 yards, then another to David for 5 yards. But time was running out. With 20 seconds left, Northwood was on the Cougars' 40-yard line. They needed a touchdown to win the game. Mr. Thompson called a timeout. He gathered the team around him, his face etched with determination. "This is it, guys," he said. "This is our last chance. We need to score a touchdown. We need to win this game." He looked at Jake, then at Michael. "Jake," he said, "I want you to throw it to Michael. He's our best receiver. He's our go-to guy. I know he can make the catch." He turned to Michael. "Michael," he said, "I need you to run a deep fly route. I need you to get open. I need you to catch this ball. Can you do it?" Michael nodded, his eyes filled with determination. He knew this was his moment. This was the chance he'd been waiting for his entire life. He wouldn't let his team down. He wouldn't let Mr. Thompson down. He would catch the ball. The clock ticked down. 10 seconds. 5 seconds. The referee blew his whistle. The game was on the line. The team huddled, ready to make the play. All eyes were on them. The crowd was going wild. This was their last chance. Their final hope. Would they make it? The pressure was on. The clock was ticking. The tension was palpable. The team knew what they had to do. It was now or never. The final play was about to begin. The seconds felt like hours. The air was thick with anticipation. It was all down to this. Michael felt a surge of adrenaline. He was ready. The team was ready. They had to win. Back on the field, Jake took his position under center. He looked at Mr. Thompson on the sideline, who gave him a nod of encouragement. Then, Jake looked at Michael, standing wide to the left. Mr. Thompson signaled for the lights. A team manager rushed onto the field with the portable light stand. He positioned it behind Jake, where Michael could clearly see it. Jake took a deep breath and glanced at the lights. The green light flashed, signaling a long pass. He knew exactly what to do. He looked back at Michael, who nodded in acknowledgement. The Cougars' defense knew what was coming. They had been double-teaming Michael all game, trying to prevent him from making a big play. But they couldn't stop him. Jake called the snap count. The offensive line surged forward, creating a pocket of protection. Jake took a step back and launched the ball. It was a perfect spiral, soaring through the air towards Michael. The ball seemed to hang in the air forever, a beacon of hope against the darkening sky. Michael sprinted down the field, his eyes locked on the ball. He could feel the Cougars' defenders closing in on him, but he wouldn't be denied. He reached the end zone, leaping into the air, his arms outstretched. The ball arrived at the same time, nestling perfectly into his hands. He landed on the ground, clutching the ball tightly, a triumphant grin on his face. The crowd erupted in cheers. The Northwood High football team had won the championship. Michael had made the catch. He had fulfilled his dream. He had overcome his disability. He had proven everyone wrong. He was a champion. The coach knew that using the lights was the right decision. It was what made their team special. It was what made Michael special. They had done it. They had won. All thanks to Michael and his visual system. The stadium erupted in a frenzy of celebration. The Northwood players mobbed Michael, lifting him onto their shoulders and chanting his name. Mr. Thompson ran onto the field, tears streaming down his face. He embraced Michael, thanking him for everything he had done. The fans poured out of the stands, joining the celebration on the field. They cheered, they sang, they danced. They were proud of their team, proud of their coach, and especially proud of Michael. The local newspaper ran a front-page story about Michael's heroics, hailing him as a role model and an inspiration. The story highlighted his determination, his perseverance, and his unwavering belief in himself. The community rallied around Michael, showering him with praise and support. He received letters from people all over the country, telling him how much his story had inspired them. He became a symbol of hope, a reminder that anything is possible if you set your mind to it. The Northwood High football team was invited to the White House to meet the president. Michael was given the opportunity to speak, and he used his platform to advocate for deaf rights and inclusion. He told his story, sharing the challenges he had faced and the lessons he had learned. He emphasized the importance of communication, teamwork, and believing in yourself. He urged people to look beyond disabilities and to see the potential in everyone. He encouraged them to embrace diversity and to create a more inclusive world. His speech was met with thunderous applause. The president praised Michael for his courage, his determination, and his leadership. He declared that Michael was an American hero. The Northwood High football team returned home to a hero's welcome. The town organized a parade in their honor, and thousands of people lined the streets to cheer them on. Michael rode in the lead car, waving to the crowd, a smile on his face. He had achieved his dream. He had caught the game-winning pass. He had won the championship. But more importantly, he had made a difference. He had inspired others to believe in themselves, to overcome their challenges, and to pursue their dreams. Michael's catch brought the team and community together. They were one. At the celebratory rally in the town square, a large banner hung overhead, "Northwood, champions because of teamwork." The mayor spoke, praising the team's resilience and Michael's exceptional spirit. Then, it was Michael's turn to address the crowd. Jake helped him by repeating what Michael signed. Michael stepped to the microphone, a mix of nerves and excitement swirling within him. He began to sign, his hands moving with grace and passion. "Thank you," he signed, his eyes scanning the crowd. "Thank you for believing in us. Thank you for supporting us. Thank you for accepting me." Jake spoke, "Michael says, thank you for believing in us. Thank you for supporting us. Thank you for accepting me." He paused, taking a deep breath. "It wasn't always easy," he signed. "I faced challenges. I faced doubts. I faced rejection. But I never gave up. Because I believed in myself. And because I had a team that believed in me." Jake, "It wasn't always easy. I faced challenges. I faced doubts. I faced rejection. But I never gave up. Because I believed in myself. And because I had a team that believed in me." He looked at his teammates, standing proudly behind him. "Teamwork," he signed, "is the key to success. We couldn't have done it without each other. We learned to communicate in new ways. We learned to trust each other. We learned to overcome our differences." Jake, "Teamwork is the key to success. We couldn't have done it without each other. We learned to communicate in new ways. We learned to trust each other. We learned to overcome our differences." He turned back to the crowd, his voice filled with emotion. "Believe in yourselves," he signed. "Don't let anyone tell you that you can't do something. Follow your dreams. Work hard. Never give up. And always remember, anything is possible if you believe." Jake, "Believe in yourselves. Don't let anyone tell you that you can't do something. Follow your dreams. Work hard. Never give up. And always remember, anything is possible if you believe." The crowd erupted in thunderous applause, their cheers echoing through the town square. They had heard Michael's message, and they had embraced it. They were inspired by his story, and they were determined to follow his example. Michael had not only won a championship, he had won the hearts and minds of his community. He had shown them the power of perseverance, the importance of teamwork, and the transformative potential of believing in yourself. He had become a true champion, on and off the field. His words resonated with everyone. They all had a newfound respect for him. Michael's story would live on forever. Years later, Michael's story continued to inspire. Northwood High established the Michael Award, given annually to the student who best exemplifies overcoming adversity and demonstrating exceptional teamwork. Mr. Thompson, now retired, often visited local schools, sharing Michael's journey with young students. He emphasized the importance of believing in others, even when it's difficult, and the power of forgiveness. He always carried a small set of colored lights with him, a reminder of the system that had changed everything. Jake went on to play college football, always crediting Michael for his success. He became a coach himself, teaching his players the importance of communication and inclusivity. He often told the story of Michael and the lights, reminding his players that anything is possible with hard work and determination. The Northwood High football team continued to thrive, embracing Michael's visual communication system as a permanent part of their strategy. They won several more championships, always honoring Michael's legacy. Michael himself became a successful businessman, employing many deaf individuals and advocating for equal opportunities in the workplace. He never forgot his roots, always giving back to the community that had supported him. He often visited Northwood High, mentoring young athletes and sharing his wisdom. He taught them the importance of setting goals, working hard, and never giving up on their dreams. He also emphasized the importance of giving back, of using their talents and abilities to make a positive impact on the world. He encouraged them to be leaders, to be role models, and to be champions for others. Michael's story became a legend, a testament to the power of the human spirit. It was a story of overcoming adversity, of believing in yourself, and of the transformative potential of teamwork. It was a story that would be told for generations to come, inspiring people to reach for their dreams and to make the world a better place. Michael's legacy lived on, not just in the trophies and accolades, but in the hearts and minds of those he had touched. His story would continue to be an inspiration for years to come. He changed the world. One catch at a time. The community would never forget him. He was a legend. And so, the story of Michael, the deaf high schooler who caught the game-winning pass, became a timeless tale of triumph over adversity. It was a story that reminded everyone that limitations are often self-imposed, and that with enough determination, anything is possible. Children with disabilities found inspiration in Michael's journey, realizing that their challenges did not define them, but rather, fueled their potential. They saw that they, too, could achieve their dreams, regardless of the obstacles they faced. Coaches and teachers learned valuable lessons about inclusivity and the importance of adapting to the needs of their students. They realized that every individual has unique strengths and abilities, and that it is their responsibility to create an environment where everyone can thrive. Communities embraced diversity, celebrating the differences that make each person special. They learned to appreciate the value of teamwork, understanding that collaboration and communication are essential for success. And Michael, the boy who had once been cut from the Team 4, not hearing plays, became a symbol of hope and inspiration for generations to come. His story served as a constant reminder that anything is possible if you believe in yourself, if you work hard, and if you never give up on your dreams. He proved that deafness was not a disability, but a different ability, a unique perspective that allowed him to see the world in a new and meaningful way. He showed everyone that the true measure of a person is not their physical limitations, but their character, their determination, and their willingness to overcome adversity. Michael's story taught the world that everyone deserves a chance to shine, and that with a little bit of support and encouragement, anyone can achieve greatness. He changed the world, one catch at a time, leaving a lasting legacy of hope, inspiration, and inclusivity. His story is a reminder that even when things seem impossible, with hard work and determination, anything can be achieved. The world is a better place because of Michael. His story lives on.